section. Welcome, Karma. You have a beautiful office, by the way.
Thank you.
I invited you as first-time guest on my YouTube channel, and we're about to have an interesting conversation about the world, starting from the States and what is going on the ground in America, and
Yeah.
also about what is going on in the Middle East. The Middle East is a very, very important place when it comes to geopolitics and international politics, as a matter of fact, because it is in a very strategic position. It has abundance of hydrocarbons. And it's also important for the major players in the world who are striving towards regional and international hegemony. So, welcome to the live stream.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll start by asking you what's going on in America? What's going on in Minnesota, across the US? We're hearing that ICE might also be going to Illinois, they might go to Chicago because they believe that some safe havens in America for illegal migrants. Give us a brief about what is really going on in America with ICE.
So, with the fact that they're unaliving Americans on the ground, like US citizens, I wouldn't say it's just illegal immigrants at this point. It's anybody who would disagree with what the American government goal is. And I recall that this all started after the protests happened in the American universities, the Columbia University, if you recall, the Hens Hall encampment. So most of those students, a lot of them were immigrants, legal immigrants who came here to study. But because they're immigrants and they can relate to what's happening in the Middle East, they wanted to be the voice of their people in the country where is democracy and justice. But it looks like we have a lot of influence from the Zionist entity, which, you know, it's all going to the direction of deport those people to make sure that they don't talk about anything that's happening. Now, as far as the reaction from the people here in America, like American born citizens,
Mhm.
they can relate to all of the immigrants here who are either their teachers, their neighbors, the nurses in the hospitals. I mean, that the entire country is built by Americans and immigrants alongside with Americans. So if you're going to take my neighbor and if you're going to take my people, then what stops you from taking the US citizens next, which is what happened. Like it started to come to our attention that we see Native Americans being taken in detention, which is it doesn't make any sense. They're Native Americans, so that is literally their country. Where are you going to deport them? So it looks like this is not about immigration more than, you're not with the government goal, which is unfortunately
Um,
operating by war.
yeah,
Sorry,
so
I talked
so
too
that
much.
that's a political aspect to this, which is um, for those that stood against the election of this current president, they will be targeted. You're also insinuating, I suppose, that this has to do with what happened with the protest on campuses and all of that. And I think he
Hmm.
said something out during his campaign promise that that his target would be to root out anybody and any immigrants, whether they are in any of the Ivy League schools or anywhere that is protesting in America and burning the flag. Most of them were not really burning the flags, but that's what he said. And the scope has widened to even people that are on the other side by voting in the the liberals or the Democrats, and also targeting people of color because you see them like dragging out Latinos, even natives. Uh, there was even an incident they went to, I think, a Hyundai factory or something like that, and dragged out a lot of South Korean workers and shipped them back. So it's a clear targeting based on profile.
Hmm.
Would you say that there's an end in sight, in terms of what the government is doing at this point, or would this continue till infinity? Would this continue until the end of this government or the end of this external?
Well, there is no way to vote ourselves out of this because it looks like the entire Congress is uh, complicit. And yes, we will continue speaking up. We'll continue supporting each other and educating each other about what's happening. But we're going now into a place where we're seeing United States is being dragged into bunch of wars, of course, to protect the Asaf Israkhara. And for that, they want a lot of people to be distracted as much as possible for not
Mhm.
stopping this from happening. Uh, Meanwhile, the only way to cancel the elections, that is the midterm elections, is by making sure that, oh, we have like a big danger and we want to address that and care for your safety. So there is no need for the elections by going into a war. You know what I mean? So I don't know if there is a way out through the government or elections unless all of them wake up in the morning all together at the same time, have a sudden awakening. So
So
there
that
will be a lot
so
of loss,
yeah,
unfortunately.
so there's a giant attempt to deflect and to project the frailties of this government and the weaknesses within the state itself. That anytime there's a massive brawl, remember the time he went into California with this massive, there was a massive protest, and it threatened the government to some extent, and boom, we saw the attack on Iran. So anytime people are this close to
To figure out
gaining
something.
momentum in terms of protests and whatever in
Yeah.
America, TikTok is going to go off. Something giant is going to happen on the international stage, and all the scenes will be wiped away. Basically, a giant reset. So there's also this idea that in the lead up to midterm elections, and the fact that the rating of this current government is not really good, that there might be an attempt to scoop out midterms. And
Yeah.
some also even argue that the attack on Nigeria, with the claim that the Christians are being protected by this American single strike in a place called Tangaza
I
in
mean, if
Sokoto
they
State, is also an attempt to garner public support and to raise its rating. Yeah, go ahead.
uh, if they care so much about the Christians, why not caring about the Christians in Palestine, which is the land of Jesus,
Mhm,
peace be upon him, to begin with? Why are they okay with villages like Singal and Taiba being attacked by settlers without stopping it?
mhm,
And the retrospective taxes that they're putting on churches inside Palestine, occupied Palestine, to make more money. So I do
mhm.
not think this is about religion more than about national resources for nations.
So you're saying it's not really about religion and Trump's
Yeah,
whole
they
idea
use
of saving Christians, so to speak.
so governments tend to use religion because people are so sensitive when it comes to talking about religion, and you are sure that it's going to motivate people to either stand together or stand against each other. With that being said, again, if you do care about people from a specific religion, why are you okay with those people being targeted by another group that is supposed to be your ally, right? So anybody can come on screen and talk about religion, but we all know it's about national resources, unfortunately. And it saddens me as an American to see that my country operates this way. But
Mhm.
it's also within the benefit of my people to make sure that this needs to stop. Because if you ask the regular American on the street, they will say, I don't need this war. All I care about is having a good job and I am making money for my family. And I definitely don't need to support Isra Khara in the process.
All right. So one other point I want us to look at is the issue of Venezuela, because you spoke about the economy. A lot of Americans I speak to are saying that the economy is resetting, is getting better. The cost of living is dropping, not significantly, but to some extent. And the point and say the price of egg has reduced and this and that, albeit not that the margins are not that much, but they say compared to the previous government of Biden, that even though people say, well, Trump, sanctions on China or the trade war and so on and so forth, it's not really doing badly with the economy. And yeah, so that leads me into Venezuela with the recent event we saw in Venezuela and the US going into Venezuela to Caracas, seizing some who say kidnapping the president of that country and his wife, and then extracting them from that country to New York to face trial or charges of narco trafficking or supporting narco activities in America. What is your take on that?
I completely disagree with that. I mean, we're in no place to police other countries, and if we put ourselves in that position, why not policing Netanyahu, who's a war criminal? Why not dragging his ass and just, for the crimes that he's doing against Christians, Muslims, and Jews? There are Jews inside occupied Palestine that disagree with what's happening. So if we have this ability, why not applying the same scale of justice on people like Netanyahu?
Yeah, but logically, you see why some people would disagree with you, because when it comes to Venezuela, the Americans that tell me that yes, that Venezuela has participated in allowing the flow of fentanyl into the US that is harming Americans. And some of them are in support of the US actually doing something about it. But my question to you is in relation to the United States government supporting this idea of going into Venezuela and basically removing the president of that country and his wife and extricating and extracting them, rather, sending them to New York to face trial. Is this something you're in support of? And what is your opinion about that specific incident in Venezuela?
I'm not in support of that. And if you were to do that, you'd have to follow the international law to do the due process. But also, if this is an issue of narcotics, okay, the way to stop issues like that is not by hitting the results or consequences, it's by hitting the root cause of this. So
Which
assuming that
is,
there are like I'm not sure, to be honest, but let's assume if this is going to be like factories or stuff like that, we are masters as Americans when it comes to supply chain tracking and retracing. So we are
mhm.
able to retrace data like that and put sanctions and completely start companies that are participating in that in a way or another. But kidnapping a president of a country, I mean, if you change the president of the country, is not going to change how the country operates or the system. And also, that wasn't the first thing that they talked about when he was kidnapped. The first thing to address was the oil, how we're going to control the oil and sell it and do this and do that. So I don't believe genuinely that it was only about the narcotics. Okay, and I do believe that there is a benefit out of it. And again, if you ask the American people, they don't want to be part of this because they're people like other people. They don't want to be part of war trade.
Yeah, but I understand your point about the intentions of the US. You're right. The president said himself, we're going to control the oil. And this is the other thing, because it's a dilemma, basically, because you're speaking on one hand about international law, but when it comes to power and real politics, international laws, conventions, understandings, and so on and so forth are all secondary. Okay, so it's about realism in any sense, and this is what Trump is blatantly doing. I think this is the first president in American history, in my lifetime, rather, that is very blatant about his position. He's not hiding it. Some will argue that other presidents have done it in the past, and they lie about it. That it's about democracy, it's about moving, the people on the other side closer to God. It's about morality and so on and so forth. While hiding under that to actually achieve their intentions. Some of it economical, some of it about power projection. In this case, you said Venezuelan oil. I know you have a set time for this maiden YouTube broadcast. So I want to move on to the next one, which is Iran. What is going on in Iran, and what is the U.S. really saying about the crackdown by the government in Tehran on their own citizens in Iran? Do you think the U.S. Pressure on the government in Tehran is genuine? Do you think America can actually effect any real change on the ground without political military intervention that will have a blowback effect or impact? Sorry.
This is going to take a minute, but I would like to share this. So, before Gaza, before the war on Gaza, I did not know a lot of things as I do know now about Iran. And I had to learn that in the process of understanding, the connections between what's going on.
Mhm.
And America did not had any issue with Iran before Isra Khara comes into existence 1948. Okay. Yes, they have a bad regime. And again, we're not in a position to police stone every country. I mean, if your neighbor has like a bad father, do you go blow up the entire house because they have a bad father? I mean, it's their issue to address, right? And again,
Mhm.
if you care about the freedom of those people in Iran, why is it that there is an Israeli grade bullets were found into the dead people bodies, right? In one hand, you claim you want their freedom. In the other hand, you unalive them to use them as an excuse to get into and help with their freedom. And that's exactly what Israel is doing. And I understand that we don't want to focus on Israel, but unfortunately, their name is all over the place. Their footprints is everywhere you go. And it saddens me that a huge country like America, big nation, brilliant minds, and we can do massive impact. I mean, in the
Mhm.
last 2 years specifically, a peaceful, great America is a peaceful world. I think we see that. To be used as a proxy by a state that doesn't have constitution, that doesn't have defined border, that is being identified as a illegal occupation by international law, it saddens me. It does saddens me.
Y-
So about Iran, I mean, they're free to do whatever they have. To solve this issue, if we really care about them, we should drop the sanctions, right?
mhm.
I mean, that should help the people's situation. But again, it's just an excuse because Israel wants to make sure that nobody stops them from stealing the land.
Yeah, yeah, karma. You see, like, okay, I'm playing the devil's advocate here. This is where some people will disagree with you because, yeah, I mean, Iran, the government of Iran is not the nicest, to be honest. And some will say,
Agree?
well, this has been going on since the 30s, since the collapse of the Qajar dynasty. America have had good relations with Iran, and they continue to maintain good relations with Iran until 1979. And even after 1979, Israel did maintain relations with Iran. Not a lot of people know this rather, because if you look at what they call the Iran Contra affair, which is the attempt by, I think, the U.S. to supply arms to the Contras in Nicaragua. And so the Congress had imposed sanctions on the government of the Congress have imposed some restrictions on the government of Ronald Reagan, and they would not allow the supply of arms to the Contras, who were basically going after everybody, and the Sandinistas that took over power after Ortega came to power in the late 60s or the early 70s, after the removal of the dictatorship of Anastasio Somoza. So these were communists. So the America wanted to stop the spread of communism. So by doing that, they were supplying arms to rebel groups that were chopping off hands of people in Nicaragua. So in order to do that, because Congress have sanctioned the government of Reagan, the CIA and the government was using Israel to supply arms to Iran, and continued on even during the period of the Iran-Iraq war. It's a contradiction because America, on one hand, said that they are falling out with Iran after 79 or the revolution, in quote, but they continue to supply arms through Israel for different reasons. Some will say because of the hostage situation, in Iran at that time with the American embassy, and also because of some of the people that were kidnapped by Hezbollah, in Lebanon. So it's a very, very complex relationship. So was Israel really at odds with Iran after 1979, or what really happened after that time period? So some will say it's not really about Israel, that America also have their own bigger interest in Iran and are trying to use Israel and Netanyahu, who have made it very clear that he wants the government destroyed to achieve their objectives. What's your take on that?
Okay, I'm going to respond in Arabic because I really love to express myself and I'm going to translate. There is a
Mhm,
say in Egypt that says, طمعان جبنا له بيت فلا تنجس كن له فيه. So a greedy man built a house and a
mhm,
bankrupt one lived inside that house. So Netanyahu knows how to play and push the buttons on this administration and this government. Yes, to tease you enough to tell you, you're going to get this and this and this and that to motivate them enough to go attack a nation. And again, that's how they're using us as a proxy. Now, Iran government is not that great, yes, and I am not in favor of them, but that doesn't mean you go blow up the entire country because you want to save the people. Who's left if you're going to blow up the entire country, right? We're not in a position to do that. And if we do care about morality that much, why is it okay for Alex Pretty to die the way he died on the street? Why is
Mhm.
it okay for Renee Good to die the way she died on the street? Okay. And we might come from, um, from different political views. We might agree and disagree, but in the end, we are Americans, right? And if we care about others, we should care about our own people first. So I don't buy anything of what they're saying. Yes, I know Iran government is not the best, but it's not the only one, right? And we have no right to control a country just because we don't like their government.
So if you were sitting, if you were the president of America, how do you deal with this situation to ensure that the Iranian government does not continue to use brute force against their own citizens? Because the thing there is, and this is one of the dominant points of view you see on mainstream media, social media, and so on and so forth, is that the women in Iran, and you are a woman yourself, are being oppressed. They are forced to wear the niqab and the hijab and the chador, and they are being maltreated by their spouses. They are not allowed to achieve their full potentials just because they are women, and that there is a moral obligation of the West to go in willy nilly to bomb that regime out of power to liberate women.
Okay. So you asked me two questions and I have to answer each one, and I'm gonna try to be short because we have like 4 or 5 minutes. So
Mhm.
the first thing, if I were to be the president, what would I do? If I care about the people in Iran so much, I would drop the sanctions that impact the people, retrace the root cause of how to control this government, sanctions to control the government, but not the people, because that's a collective punishment. Okay. The second thing is, yes, I am a woman and I hate to see for other women to be oppressed as well, but I would advocate for the people choice. If they choose to do a revolution, they are able to do a revolution on their own, not with the help of another country that want to benefit out of their death and their revolution, if that makes sense. Right? So I'm not
Yeah,
against them protesting in the streets. I mean, this is their country and they are aware of their situation better than anybody else. But I am against seeing Israeli made bullets inside people's body, right? Why? Like, why are they putting their nose in every nation's situation? For God's sake, that's
yeah,
it.
but,
I
but
hope I answered.
don't you think that the West have a moral obligation to actually liberate women, to stop them from wearing hijab like the West is saying? I mean,
Why?
it's
What's
not
wrong
my
with
thing.
hijab?
I'm
I
not
mean,
calling for that because, well, this is what is dominant on the Western
okay,
press. That's not the only thing. The US have made other arguments, but this has been the recruiting sergeant, so to speak, or this has been the ground that the West has, is the messaging. Women
okay.
are forced to cover their hair, and that the West have an obligation to actually liberate women, to stop them from covering their hair.
We had these debates where we had Irani women came on lives. I debate with you on lives, okay? And a lot of them came out to say, look at our streets. Not all of us are forced to do so. But let's assume that people are forced to do so, which I am against, okay? There's nothing wrong with hijab. There's something wrong with how you approach women to wear the hijab. Okay. So every woman is free to wear it or not. And you will find
Mhm.
that in Christianity, in Judaism, in Islam, hijab does exist with different ways and different phrases. Okay. Now, if you are going to be obligated to do that for the Iranian women, are you also going to do it for the Jewish women that are being forced to shave their heads in Israel? That's also an oppressive way, right? Are you going to do the same thing where you're going to respect the hijabi women and don't pull their
Yeah, but yeah,
hijab
but
in the
yeah,
streets?
but the thing is that some will go against your argument and say, well, in Israel, women are actually allowed to do whatever they want. I mean, some of
Not
them,
true.
like the Haredim and the other ones, because of the conservative and the orthodox nature of their own section of sect of the religion, might shave their hair and cover their hair. But largely, women in Israel are allowed to, dress any way they want. But in Iran, some are arguing that there's a strict rule forcing women to cover their hair.
As I said, I am against it, but that's up to the people to go against it in the way that they want to decide how they want to go against it. But that doesn't mean I go and catch Israel, who's forcing and oppressing their own women. They're not just oppressing the women to shave their heads. There is a lot mass of sex violence inside IDF. The rates of crimes are like increasing rapidly in the last 2 years. They're on
Mhm.
meds all the time. We have testimonies from IDF soldiers inside the Knesset talking about how they abuse their women, how they pee on themselves in bed, etc., etc. Also, there is a big case against Knesset member abusing women from a very young age. So if you are obligated morally to protect these women, then lead by example and protect your own women first, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're running out of time. This is the first segment. We hope to have you on the stream again. Thank you for accepting it at a very short notice, and we hope we can tap into your expertise on other issues, in the Middle East, in and what's going on in the United States, and so on and so forth. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you soon.
You're the best. I
Thank,
appreciate your knowledge. You know that. And I
thank you
would
so
not
much.
do it with anyone. So thank you for giving me that
Yeah,
pleasure.
thanks for coming. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for participating in this edition, and hopefully we can get more guests that are experts in this field that know what is going on the ground, so we can have conversations with them. Don't forget to interact with this video. If you have questions for CAF, you can leave it in the comment section. If you have questions for me, if there's any other area you want us to touch on, particularly what is going on in Africa, what is going on in Western Asia, what's the trade war between America and China, and recently the political situation in China with what is going on with the highest ranking military guy, General Zhang Yujia, which is a topic I'd love to discuss again. And we come to the end of this program. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and